Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman of the Action Network. I am live from my Tommy John home studio, which is actually my studio in a hotel in Philadelphia. So if I do lag on video, for those watching live, watching on YouTube, please forgive me. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF, professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Chad, welcome to the birthplace of freedom, Philadelphia.
I'm feeling very free. It is a beautiful, beautiful day in Philadelphia. You always worry when you're doing these live events, and we have our live event at the Wicked Wolf in Center City in Simon's hometown. You always worry, like, isn't going to be raining, and does that keep people from getting to the polls? Or in this case, to the Wicked Wolf. We are going to gather with friends. We're going to do a live show. We're going to watch the Niners cover the 2.5 against the Rams. That number is already up to 3. We're going to bet and sweat some special Bet365 boosts with all of our fans. By the way, even if you're not there, you will be able to play the Bet365 boosts along with us. More on that in a minute. Today is our NFL Week 15 Best Bets episode. Simon and I will narrow down our five favorite picks to put into the favorites $100,000 Pro Football Pick'em contest presented by Bet365. Sign up now, favorites.actionnetwork.com. We'll get into the foxhole. We'll give out our Tommy John Big Balls Bet of the Week. We're going to discuss Simon's biggest bets. We'll get to our boosted Moneyline underdog parlay, the underdog round robin, and so much more. Bets are rolling in. Lines are moving. It has been a weird week with lines going up and down and up and down and up and down, some crossing key numbers. Decisions need to be made, as our Volume podcast boss, Colin Cowherd, likes to say. There's a sea of money out there. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. And now, new Bet365 customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code FAVORITES, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older. In Kentucky, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right. It's Thursday, as always. Thursdays during the season, we like to hear how the wise guys are responding to our Tuesday conversation. That's how influential we are. The lines move based on our conversations, and the pros feel compelled to weigh in on our opinions. Simon, let's do sharp calls.
Yeah, start with the Thursday game. We've seen this number move right. We both liked 49ers at 2.5. Now most books are showing 3. Let's still take it at 3, but obviously you want the best of the number. So shop right if you find the 2.5, because that is the professional side right now. I don't know too many pros taking it at -3. I know plenty that are hammering this 2.5. A side we're not on. A lot of pros I've talked to, they like Miami. Maybe it's a game you want to discuss, or we can just keep it moving. But I think they view it of this Houston team's still a little overrated, that Miami is not as bad as we perceive. It's a nice spot to back this Miami team, I guess, in their perspective. So that's one that wasn't really on my radar. I was shocked to hear so many guys like that side. Another game maybe will end up as one of our 5. A lot of the pros love this Jags number, just like we did at 3.5. And it really is all about this Jets team getting too much respect. And I thought it was going to be a lot of professionals on the Jets once again, but it seems like it was just a small group playing the number at 2.5, 3 on that Jets side. And most pros align with our view of it, taking the Jags at 3.5. It's just really about 2 bad teams, and one of them is getting over a field goal. That just, to me, feels pretty easy to take that bad side. A game that, we've talked a lot about. I know that we like Pittsburgh. Every pro I've talked to, Chad, is on this Eagles team. So that's one maybe we'll have to dive into. Yeah, it's really shaping up to be a pros versus Joes kind of game. And obviously there's a couple pros out there that they've taken the Pittsburgh side. But, right now, Chad, it looks like we are the Joe Public side in that Pittsburgh Eagles game. Another one we love that, we kind of was hesitant, I guess, on Tuesday, but The more I've looked into it, it feels like it's a good spot. This Colts number, we've seen it come down to 4.5. Some books now are 3.5. That's one we'll definitely have to dive into, Chad, because I love the professionals, love the Colts. Tampa, I really love this side. It's more split than I thought it was going to be. There's some professionals that really like the Chargers. Once again, it's all about the number. I know some pros have taken the Chargers at 2.5, but people like me have bet heavier on the other side of Tampa at +3. So that's been a really interesting back and forth. I'm actually on the wrong side of this one, apparently. I like Green Bay -2.5. Talked to a lot of pros who like the Seahawks. I feel like I'm dug in, they're dug in. They believe in the Seahawks defense, and I believe in just that the Green Bay is just one of the better teams right in the NFC, playing against a Seahawks team that feels like they've caught teams in the right moments and they're kind of been punching above their weight, that they're a little overrated, overinflated right now. So I'm excited to hear your opinion on that now that we sit here on Thursday. And the last one, me and Chad, we talked about Detroit. It was -1.5 on this show. We humbly try not to say it's just because of the show this number moved, but we saw it happen in real time. We gave it out, and all of a sudden it was 2.5 by the time we were closing the show. So not that shocking. The public and a couple of professionals have lined up on the Bills side when it gets to 2.5 and a 3. I know plenty of pros that love this Lions team, especially when it touches 2. So, yeah, there's other games we haven't touched on just because the number of lines move so much, but those are the ones that really jumped out to me. A lot of noise between those. Obviously, the most talked about games right now, like especially, I was with 5 professionals last night. Everyone had a really strong opinion either on the Eagles game or on this Lions-Bills game. So, yeah, really fun week breaking these all down.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. The one quibble I have with you is I feel like we talked a lot about Miami. I was like, I wanted to like Houston, and the more I dug into it, the more I liked Miami. I have
Okay.
it on our list to discuss today. So we're definitely going to get into that one. Don't forget, folks. Uh, if you're listening to this live, tonight is our free favorite podcast watch party at Wicked Wolf in Center City, Philly. I'm in Philly already. Matt Mitchell is in Philly already. Simon, of course, is just outside Philly and on his way in later today. 7 p.m. Going to watch the Thursday night football game between the Rams and the Niners. If you're watching live and you're in the area, come on by. There's time to RSVP. You got to RSVP. If you're listening to the podcast version, we had a blast. It was so much fun. All right, let's get rolling. Dallas at Carolina. Carolina is at 2.5 right now at Bet365. It's at 3 at a lot of places. So this was on the list as if we have to, we're going to bet it. I pulled the trigger. I bet the Panthers at 2.5. It's kind of remarkable to say this, Simon. Do we think the value is lost on the Panthers right now as favorites? Like, is it just gone?
Yeah, and this is a game that feels like the professionals bet it early in the week, and then they're not so much betting it at this point, right? When Carolina was a dog or they opened at -1, that's when we saw a lot of the money coming. Like last night, a lot of the guys I was talking to, they're just not interested in it just because of all the line movement, and it's getting to the point like we talked about where I might have to bet the Cowboys because, like you just said, the line might move too much, and eventually, if it does stay at 3 and gets up to 3.5. That's where the value would be. But at 2.5, Chad, I can't fault you for taking the Panthers. Like this feels like it should be 3. Wouldn't be shocked if it lands right on 3. I mean, these are just 2 bad teams, right? And one team is really banged up in the Cowboys. On the flip side, we've seen this Panthers team be a totally different team since their bye week, and they've really turned things around. And like you said, eventually the luck of all the, Bryce Young throwing off his back foot, perfect dimes, drop into the corner. It is going to run out. Like it's just he's been playing so above his head right now that everyone's turned right. Everyone I talk to now is back in on Bryce Young and this Panthers team. So you're right for feeling like it might be the time to jump off. I just view it as I don't know. It feels like there's still value in this Panthers team just because I do view them as the better team, and they are at home against a Cowboys team that we've seen has struggled on the road. So, yeah, it's a tricky number, Chad, because it has moved so much. So it's just one I've just avoided altogether.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get it in the contest because I think in the contest it'll be a 2.5. Like you and I, we both like to not look at the numbers until after the Thursday show, just so we're not cheating a little bit in the contest. We like to do it at the end of this program. So I haven't seen. the way it's been sitting at 2.5 all week at Bet365. The Panthers will be at 2.5 in the contest. So we'll have to see, like, with the rest of the games we're talking about. I felt pretty confident about 5 we could get to without the Panthers. But after hearing sharp calls, I wonder if we're going to be able to do that. So right now it's on the outside looking in. I would say there are probably 3 games that are waffling between that 2.5 and 3 this week that we're going to talk about. This is one of them. That if it's at 2.5, we like one side. If it's at 3, we like the other. So I'm excited to dig into those as well. Cleveland at Kansas City. Cleveland right now at Bet365 is +4. There are a smattering of 4.5s out there. Don't forget, this was at 6.5 on Sunday night when we first flagged it. I went back, I listened, I looked at our notes from Tuesday. I think we were being cowardly, hoping we could avoid this game. I actually put in my notes, we both said we wanted to avoid this game, given how snake bit we were last week when we had the Browns and we had the Chiefs and neither went our way. But how are we, like, not ignoring the teams here and just playing the number? If you look back at that Browns game, and Nick Giffen, Dr. Nick, with the luck rankings, had a analysis of the Browns in that Steelers game and showed how it's beyond, like, bad luck what happened in that game and how they should have covered. I feel like we have to be taking the Browns here.
Yeah, I don't fault you for that. I mean, we did talk about it. If it's pretty simple at this point. If it's above 3, right, against Mahomes,
Yeah.
you should just fade him. But that's just my issue here, Chad. It's just too easy, and I guess that's just me, someone that's done this a long time. That usually when it's too easy, it's not as it's perceived, and we can have all the unlucky stats in the world. It doesn't account for Jameis. Like that's the issue with that metric. It's like, were they unlucky against Denver, or is that just the full James experience? Like him throwing that pick once again after he drove the field and we're on the 4-yard line. And like last week, you talked about that turnover he had kind of killed the game, right? At the pick to the defensive lineman. So that's my hesitation here. Is just there's other dogs I feel like I have a better read on that can be more consistent, and I trust the number more than we play this number. And neither of us would be surprised if the Chiefs defense just completely dominates and destroys this Browns offense. The reason I want to join you on the Browns is just because of what we talked about. That D-line against the Chiefs offensive line, that should be a huge matchup for that Browns team. Like Myles Garrett, even with all of his injuries, should be able to get to the quarterback just about any time he wants, especially if they're doing what Andy Reid's been doing, which is not leaving tight ends in the block. Like even last week, they knew that guy was struggling that tackle, and it's like Andy Reid wasn't leaving anyone in a chip. He wasn't have the running back chip on that side either. It was like they're trying to run their same old offense where they just can't. Like it just is not the same offense as they've been a run before. So I'm with you, Chad. It's like if we had to force in Cleveland, I could get behind it. It's just it makes me uneasy because of the Winston effect. It's just been as fun as it's been betting on him. It's been obviously a terrible experience these last couple of weeks.
Well, look, we got a win for all the Jameis reasons, throwing 2 pick sixes. And by the way, the pick at the end of the game, which would have allowed him to get into the back door.
Yeah.
And then we lost with Jameis when there was a turnover by Jameis with 3 minutes, a little more than 4 minutes left in the game before the Kadarius Toney fumble on the punt, where they were driving on the Steelers' 35-yard line and they were down 27-14 and Jameis turnover. Here's what I would say. Number one, your point about the offensive line for the Chiefs is massive. They did a terrible job defending against the Chargers' defensive line. And the Chargers' defensive line is not even close to as good as the Browns' defensive line, right? The Browns lead the league in pressure rate. Going against an O-line, they cannot protect Patrick Mahomes for an extended period. We've seen it week after week after week, whether it's Wanya Morris, DJ Humphries, it doesn't matter who's on the edge at left tackle. They have to change their offense. You're right. They're not bringing anyone into chip. Instead, Andy Reid is just deciding we're going to throw the ball in under half a second, right? It's going to be two-step drop, 5 seconds, we're done. And so, or not 5 seconds, like two-step drop, half a second, 0.5 seconds, we're done, get the ball out. So that's number one. The Chiefs' defensive backfield, by the way, literally signing guys off the street. Steven Nelson, who they drafted in 2015, played a few years with them and retired, was just signed to the Chiefs practice squad because they have no defensive backs. Andy Reid's comment when he was signed, this was great. He was a good player when he was here. He hasn't been there in like 5 years. So I don't think the Chiefs can cover anybody. And if they can't cover anybody, then Spagnuolo can't blitz the way he likes to blitz because he doesn't have any help in the back end of the defense. So I know it doesn't matter. It's all up to Jameis.
Yeah.
Will he throw that stupid pick? But
Yeah.
like matchup wise, number wise,
It's great.
The Browns are decided.
Right.
But you're right. We're betting on At the end of the day, it's Jameis. It's Jameis. What are you going to do? So Miami at Houston, like we discussed it on Tuesday for a while. I'm so, like, because
I was talking to me personally. It's not all about you, Chad. I was just talking to me personally, not having a read on it.
What do you mean?
Well, you were acting like I like dismissed that we never talked about it. I was just more of a viewpoint of I just don't have a read on it. Like I wanted to be on Houston, but it seems like most professionals I've talked to, they like Miami. So it's one of those, if I can avoid, I would avoid.
I'm like a professional and I wanted to be on Houston too. And then I did my research and realized, oh my God, I might have to be on Miami. It's what I do, Simon.
Well, what am I missing? What's your research saying about Miami?
My research about Miami is saying that they're actually better in the red zone than we think offensively. They're better defensively in the red zone than we think. And that this is probably a pretty good matchup for them if the number is at 3. At 2.5, we probably like the Texans. At 3, I lean Dolphins. I have not bet it. I don't want to put it in the contest. I was really thinking this was going to be an auto play for me on the Texans coming off a bye, as healthy as they've been all season, but I still can't get there because I think the Dolphins are better than we think.
All right, I agree then. I would take Miami, but obviously we're never going to get the number we want. If it was 3.5 in contest, I would love it. It's going to be 2.5. All the books are showing it's in between 2.5 and 3. So, yeah, it looks like it's a game we'll just avoid.
0 edge at 3. That's what I wrote in my notes. Dude, we're heading into a live event, and you and I right now, we're mind melding. That's what's happening. Cincinnati at Tennessee. I left this on. We don't have to get into it. I really only left it on the list because I wanted to see if there were any sharp calls about it. Because we talked about Tennessee being the right side. The number feels a little bit too high. Cincinnati's basically a one-dimensional team right now. The problem is the Titans might not have any dimensions. So I just like, we can skip it. We're not going to put it in the contest. I only want to talk about it if there was significant sharp money coming in on the Titans. Are you hearing anything? Has anything happened in your research the past 48 hours to put you on the Titans?
I mean, we talked like we're betting the Titans just because of the number, and it's a nice spot to back the book. Like this is a game the books are going to need, and you know, obviously hasn't worked out totally this year, but historically, that's the exact spot you want to be on. And from my view of like the professionals that like this side, it's really about something we've talked about, just that O-line with Joe Burrow and the fact that, you know, the strength of Tennessee is up the middle. So that means he'll be having pressure right on his lap, which we've seen him struggle with, right? And obviously this season, he's putting on one of the best performances you've ever seen by a quarterback. So they've navigated all that pressure, not just from the side, up the middle, and he's found a way to make it work. But, you know, like we talked about, we want to take it just because of this number. And it feels like Cincinnati got away with one last week, right? Like that was an incredibly lucky, when we've been behind those lucky covers. That was an incredibly lucky cover by that Cincinnati team. So it just feels like what most pros we'd view the same way. It's an overinflated line. Should be 3.5. You're getting 5. Good luck if you're backing Will Levis. It's a tough spot and a tough number to be in.
Backing Will Levis at 5 actually feels scarier than backing Jameis at 4.5. Because at least Jameis, we know, can get the ball down the field, and he will be able to find open receivers and score touchdowns. I don't know if Will Levis can do that.
No, if we're down 10 with Jameis, I have some confidence. And when down 10 with Will Levis,
No
it's
confidence.
it's exactly, it's over.
It's a dead bet.
Yeah.
Completely dead bet. So I didn't put this in the script, but you mentioned in order, this would be where it is. You mentioned the Jags at plus 3.5.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised there's that much activity from professional bettors on the Jags at 3.5. Like we said on Tuesday, lame duck coach versus an interim coach, a backup quarterback who's not very good, coming off a preposterous win, an over the hill quarterback who's not as good as he used to be, coming off a preposterous loss. I guess the hook is what hooked people.
Yeah, and I'm also just a believer in that this team has been the Jaguars. Again, it's all when you get to this time of year, you're looking for a bunch of different stuff, but I really do like to focus on home and away splits. There's just some teams that perform well at home and some that do not. And we've seen this season, this Jaguars team, whether it's Trevor Lawrence or so far Mac Jones, they have played better when they're at home. And early in the year they played Green Bay. That was a game I famously made us bet. Chad was hating me for because Green Bay was outplaying Jacksonville all the way to the very end. I got really lucky. The running back laid down at the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Green Bay wins 30-27. We cover that 3.5. Minnesota went down at Jacksonville, right? That was one of the ugliest, sloppiest games we've ever seen. Jags covered that game. They lost 12-7. Like another weird game that they somehow covered. Then they obviously got rolled at Detroit. We all remember. But then they went on their bye week, and we've seen that since their bye week. They played Houston at home. They lost 23-20. A nice, once again, me and Chad were all on that number. We covered the back door, the 3.5. And then last week, like we already talked about, they were down 6-0 heading into the fourth quarter. They kick a field goal, end up getting a touchdown. They win 10-6 with Mac Jones. So it's a team that, as much as you want to say it's a lame duck coach and that it's a team that's given up, they're clearly still playing hard and putting it all together. And it's clearly a team that the market is still not valued right? I mean, it's back-to-back weeks now. They've been 3.5. And to me, that's my view of it. It feels like, once again, the Jets are being a little overvalued. I get it. Aaron Rodgers did look better last week, but like we talked about, he's been incredibly inconsistent. And maybe they did find something, Chad. I'm about to get burned here by backing this Jaguars team. But to me, it just feels like I'm playing the number, where it's like, why would the Jags not win this game outright? Why is this not closer to a pick? These are very evenly matched teams, especially when you add in the mix that, Mac Jones, we've seen it now in back-to-back weeks. He finds something late in the games and he can turn it on. This is a Jets defense that can be passed on. Like, it's not this juggernaut, get good stops kind of defense. So that's just my view of it, Chad. It's really about playing the number, and just that it feels like, once again, this Jets team's overvalued, especially the fact that they're coming off a cover for a lot of bettors. So we've just seen, especially in the Action app, all the money, all the tickets right now feels like are on the Jets. And a couple books have moved it from 3.5 down to 3 just to protect against a lot of professional money coming on this Jaguar side.
All right. So I'm leaving it on the list. Right now, our list of 5 includes Cleveland at 4.5 and the Jags at 3.5. We're going to get to a streak of games where it's going to be the ones that we really feel strongly about. But as usual, we're starting off scary. Speaking of scary, I'm just saying this game. We have no intention of putting it in the contest, but the New York Giants are now 16.5-point home underdogs against the Ravens. I just put this one on the list because the number has gotten so outrageous. This has to be a wise guy play at this number. There's like the last 2 examples of a 16 from Evan. The last 2 examples of a 16-plus point dog have all been the Giants. Once in 2023 at the Cowboys, once in 2022 at the Eagles. 16-plus point dogs, 14-12 against the spread since 2018. So, it's plus money a little bit. The last time there was a plus 16-point dog at home, we mentioned this on Tuesday, Jags versus the Bills in 22. The Jags won 9-6. Matt Mitchell remembers it well. He did not get to eat wings with surgical gloves that day. But since 1990, it's happened 11 times. 16 plus point dogs are only 5-6 against the spread. So now Tommy DeVito's a quarterback. It doesn't feel like an autoplay anymore, but tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I think your view of it is correct in the sense that the Ravens secondary makes it that you want to bet this number because they have been backdoored and they are struggling against the pass. And I totally get where you're coming from. It's tempting. That's why they made this number so big. That's what they're doing here. They're trying to suck us in, Chad. So I'm doing my best not to bet it because I'm trying to be patient and hope this gets to 17. Because you're right. Right now it's at 16.5, which is like might as well be a dead number. It's the mathematical odds of it landing on 16 are so small. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Maybe we'll be kicking ourselves when they're down 8 driving with the ball at the end of the fourth quarter against the Ravens. It's like, how did we not take this? There was no doubt they were going to somehow cover this huge number. It just moved too much at this point. But yeah, as we sit here right now, I haven't taken a position on it. I got no real feel for it. I know some pros who have bet it, and it's the exact same view of Chad of just this number's too big for a team that isn't a top 3, top 4 team right now in the NFL, and this Ravens team. Like, they're just not the team of the past. So I totally get your perspective.
You also just wonder, is there a little bit of pride? We know the players know the spreads. We know that the Giants are looking at this thinking, we're nearly 17-point underdogs at home. As bad as Tommy DeVito is, as much as that defensive line might struggle without the best player in the middle of the line, like that's a huge, huge number. Bookmakers have always told me, like, you basically 2x the NFL spread to get to what it would be in college. If this was a college number, it would be 34, right? That would be what the spread is. That's a Alabama versus, Eastern Carolina State University of Technology number. These are NFL players still. Like that, it defies logic to me. If we get it at 17, we're not going to get in the contest, but if it gets to 17, I'm going to be looking for this to put a little bit of piece of action on Sunday morning. That's what I'll be doing.
That's fair.
Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Simon, I feel like this is going to have to be our foxhole.
Oh, shit.
Well, look, you and I were waffling about this one on Tuesday. It's come down from 5.5 to 5. And like, I know it's a tricky one. I know the reasons why we hesitated a little bit. Like with the Panthers last week are because of the Eagles' defensive line and their elite rushing game, and their secondary is very good. But I think there's real, and you came at me a little bit and tried to tell me that Jalen Hurts is similar to Josh Allen, but there's real issues with this Eagles passing game. They are running the ball more than they are passing the ball, which is, well, why are you laughing at that?
Because I don't know why that's an issue when you have Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts as your quarterback.
It's not an issue, but if you can't pass the ball, then it's hard to win against good defenses.
Do you know what the definition of can't is, Chad?
Say what?
Do you know what the definition of can't is?
What?
I don't know. You're definitely using it wrong, though. You just said they can't throw the ball. They can't?
Not as well. They can throw the ball.
I just think the hate's gone too far.
Don't try to get English on me.
Well, it's just, what are you talking about? You're a crazy person. They can throw the ball if they need to. They're just a run-first team right now. You sound like the fans of Philadelphia. It's like, what do you guys want? Do you want them to throw for 400 yards and lose to the Panthers?
Well, it's infecting me right now.
I don't get it. I don't get it what people want. So I'm happy AJ was able to laugh it off. It's just, it's, again, I was worried in the sense of like, yes, no one wants their star receiver and their quarterback hating each other and being in, having beef. But it seemed like they both were able to talk about it, where it's like, we both know that, the passing game did struggle last year, and that was part of the reason the collapse did happen. I think that's what AJ is talking about. It's like, that we need to get this on point heading into the playoffs because we're not going to be able to just run the ball 30 times against these really good teams. But I don't know. I have faith in Hurts. It's just like, yeah, has he played well? No, but if they come out here and they beat Pittsburgh by 2 touchdowns and he throws for 250 and 2 touchdowns, it's like, are all their problems solved? I don't think so. Like, I don't think there's just something they can just correct in a week or two that's going on with Hurts, right? It's like, yes, the biggest issue, again, was AJ was open downfield in the first quarter. Hurts clearly missed him on what should have been an easy touchdown for AJ. And for the rest of the game, AJ was in a little pissy, bitchy mood the rest of the game because of that one play. And then obviously got interviewed after the game, immediately said something he shouldn't have said. And same goes with Brandon Graham. So the professionals I talked to, why they like the Eagles series, they just think this line should be closer to 6.5, 7. Because of that Panthers game, you're getting a 5, 5.5 lower number on this Eagles game. And I have a hard time making the number that big. Like we already talked about, Chad. I just think Pittsburgh is underrated here. The number feels too big. I'll be a sucker with you. I'll buy this Pittsburgh one and I'll ride the Tomlin spot. But it's like every pro I know, they like this other side. They like the Eagles side just because they like this matchup for them. And obviously, we haven't even talked about Pickens not playing in this game is a big deal for that Pittsburgh offense. And, as much as you want to say Cleveland has a good defense, they don't compared to this Eagles team, right? Eagles are in the top 3 in almost every metric. That Cleveland team is not that same defense from the year before. That's why, Russ could get away with throwing deep balls to Mike Williams and get away the last week. That maybe we're going to get caught here, Chad, but I'm with you. It feels like we're walking into a trap, but it's like I can't avoid it. My model likes the number. I like the number. I'm happy to go against the professionals with you. It just feels like it's too inflated, and this game will come down to a field goal, which, once again, Pittsburgh has a huge advantage there. They have the much better kicker right now in this matchup. So it is tough, Chad. It feels like I'm missing something here, but I can't help it. It's such a big number for this Pittsburgh team.
We're in the foxhole with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right.
We just are. My point with the Eagles is really, unless we believe the Eagles can completely change their game plan to prove to themselves that AJ and Jalen Hurts in this passing game is fine, and they're going to stop relying on Saquon Barkley for a game. Don't we have to believe that this will be a run-heavy game that gives the Steelers a chance to keep it close, right? That's what I believe, more than anything. Whether or not I believe, or you believe, or anyone believes in Jalen Hurts and the passing game and their ability to throw the ball, that's not who they are. They're a run-first team because they have Saquon Barkley, and their offensive line is amazing, and their defensive line is amazing, and they make it difficult on other teams because of their pressure and because of their defensive backfield. So this should play out as a low-scoring game where the clock bleeds and both teams are trying to run the ball, and that would play into the favor of the Steelers covering at 5 or 5.5, which is we're probably going to get 5.5 in the contest. So we're together on this. We might be coming at it from opposite sides, but we are together on this. And that's really all that matters, because when you're in a foxhole, you got to believe, and you got to beat compadres, and you got to know that it's you against the world. And I think that's how you and I are feeling right now, even if this feels tense.
Yeah, it's not even that. I don't trust the number, and that's what I'm worried about. There's something I must be missing here, because I just will never understand why the books hung this number so high. It'll never make sense why this wasn't 3.5. So
makes no sense.
It will make sense once on Sunday we lose by a touchdown.
100%. And we're going to be disappointed. I'm going to sit on my couch and I'm going to be like, why did we do this? But at least I'm going to know that you were with it. I didn't I didn't try to talk you into it. So I'm not going to feel guilty.
Yeah, you kind of did, but I'm with you.
No way. No way. You fully came around.
I'm putting this on this is Chad's bet. I'm definitely putting this on you.
Oh my God. You are a fucking coward. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Guess what? It's time for our Big Balls Bet of the Week, presented by Tommy John. If you've got the balls, Tommy John has the support. Great games start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. I'd like a little credit for belting it out in a hotel room. And I didn't lose my voice or cough it out. That's exciting developments there. We're going with the Indianapolis Colts +4 at Denver. From the beginning on Sunday night, we talked about this game, and it just kind of, without doing any research, the number looked funny. It got up to 4.5. Look, the Colts are one of those teams that I think we and professional bettors have more respect for than the market. I think that's reflected in the line. Like, couple that with the win streak that the Broncos have been on, including that wild game against the Browns before their bye that they probably shouldn't have covered at all. I just feel like we have an inflation alert. You spent the last couple days thinking about it. You're feeling strongly about it. You've spoken to the wise guys. They're feeling strongly about it. How did you get there?
Yeah, I think what you just off the top though is really about this number, and that's what a lot of guys are debating was just isn't this line inflated? Like this feels like it's bumped up way too high. And yeah, obviously I'm jealous of you. I saw you got a 4.5, and it's like that would have been ideal. That would have been the perfect number for us in the contest. But I'm not gonna let it totally scare us off. If it's 3.5, I could still see us put it in just because it
Yeah.
still feels like it's inflated. And they haven't played a ton of running quarterbacks this season, obviously, Denver. But we saw that even when I went back and watched that Lamar game, that was a way you can really kind of stifle their front four. Like that, as good as they've been at rushing the passer and getting to the passer, I've seen a couple instances they have struggled against mobile quarterbacks. And we've talked about Bo Nix, as great as he's played. We saw it last week with the Browns. It's like he is still hitting a little bit of that rookie wall at this point, where teams are adjusting and making it more difficult for him. And that we've seen that when it is off game script, that he has struggled. So yeah, I fully support you on this number. I bet it. I like the Colts here. Like we talked about, the only real fear here is the difference between this team that playing at home and on the road. They've just been a different team. They're obviously way better at home, this Colts team. And even Anthony Richardson in his young career, I mean, you can go back and look. He is a covering machine at home. He struggled a little bit on the road. Again, maybe that's to do with outdoors, all this other stuff that we don't know because he's only played, 11 games up to this point, or 12 games in the NFL. So that stuff is tough to say. But another game just like that one we talked about with the Jaguars, it feels like pros versus Joes. Another week of the professionals are all hammering one side, and the public is very happy, thinking they're getting a good number on the other side. So, yeah, Chet, I'm with you and back in the books here and taking this 3.5, 4 with this Colts team.
Also, a couple really interesting injury developments. Riley Moss of the Broncos,
Yeah,
the cornerback, the only player in the Broncos not to practice so far this week. So does not look like he'll be playing. Anyone who was watching that Broncos Browns game on Monday night knows that William Vance, the cornerback who replaced him, he just got freaking torched by Jameis and Jerry Jeudy. That was the reason why they stayed in that game. Every single time you looked up, he was giving up a huge, huge play to Jeudy, with including a couple of touchdowns. So that's a big deal for the Broncos in their pass defense. Also, Ryan Kelly, the Pro Bowl center for the Colts, he is practicing again this week, coming off injured reserve with an injury. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, but he is in the window where they can activate him if they feel comfortable with it. So that might be something that gives you a little bit more confidence betting on the Colts. Also, Anthony Richardson, you talked about it. He's got a touch of Bryce Young in him in terms of, since he's been benched, he's been considerably better. Pro Football Focus has him 8th in their overall passing grades, 4th in big time throws since his week 10 return. So we're on the Colts. I think we'll get him at 4.5 in the contest, but I also like him at 3.5 as you do. Simon, we can hear the bells. We can smell the gingerbread. The holiday season is upon us, and with over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, let's make the gift of Tommy John our newest holiday tradition. It always feels good to give a thoughtful gift, but it feels great to give Tommy John. You'll feel the warm glow of upgrading someone's life, and with breathable comfort, they'll feel those special kringle tingles all year long. Simon, why will you be giving the gift of Tommy John this season?
because it's the gift at last.
Shop TommyJohn.com/favorites right now for the holidays and get 30% off site-wide. Save 30% off at TommyJohn.com/favorites. TommyJohn.com/favorites. I'm wearing my Tommy Johns for the big live show tonight. Packed them special just for the show. All right. Big game. I thought this was going to end up being a foxhole game, even though it was already our exec decision. I thought it might be a big balls, even though it was our exec decision. Buffalo at Detroit. Detroit's -2.5. We loved it at 1.5, and it moved, right? And it moved while we were on the show.
Mhm.
Now it's at 2.5. 70% of the tickets on the Bills. So we have a reverse line move here, which means even though the tickets are coming in on the Bills, the line has moved in the Lions' direction. It's gone up. I think the Lions are the better team. Nothing I've done since Tuesday makes me feel differently. I think they might be as healthy as they've been in weeks across the defensive line. They could be getting a lot of players back. They haven't played in 10 days. The last time they did it was at home. They haven't left home since they were on the road at Indy on November 24th. Where do you feel? How do you feel? What are you thinking? Am I
No, I
wrong?
agree. I mean, I love the lines. Obviously, we wish it was 1.5. If it's 2.5, Chad, I could still see us putting this in the contest just because I
That
do
was my
think
question for you. Like
I would.
I'm waffling a little bit at the 2.5. I don't know why, but maybe I'm losing my courage a little bit because the number because I'm like I'm hearing whispers about people who like the Bills too.
Yeah, me too. And my view of it, though, is what you just talked about. I just think the Lions, even with all their injuries to the defense, I still think they're the better team overall. I mean, we haven't really talked about just because the Bills, I mean, Josh Allen, like I said, he's been Captain America and it hasn't mattered, but they have what, 60 million in dead cap money, some crazy egregious number this season because of the whole thing that went on with Diggs. And, they've overcome that because of him. But they overcome in the sense that they're about to beat now one of the best teams in all of football in the Lions at home. Like we just talked about, it's like I get all the love and respect for this Bills team and that this number has dipped below 3. Like we talked Sunday night when this was at 3, it's like okay, at that number I would take the Bills, but once it's dipped under that, that to me is why I want to be on this Lions team. And our hesitation here is just that me and Chad, I don't know how many times we've been on the +2.5 number, and it's literally landed on 2. And we've covered almost every time on that 2.5.
Yep.
So maybe that's the hesitation here. But there's a couple favorites I like this week at -2.5, and I'm gonna ride with it. I just think matchup wise, it's a good matchup for the Lions team. That Bills team is as good as they are and how great Josh Allen is. This Lions team, I feel like we're about to get stops defensively, and on the other side of the ball, I don't know how the Bills will get stops defensively. Like it feels like if the Lions choose to run the ball down this Bills team's throat, they'll be able to do it. Like we've seen it now that this two-headed monster is just something special with Montgomery and Gibbs. So yeah, another game I'm trying hard not to overthink, Chad, because I'm with you. My instinct right away was like, Bills, take Josh Allen as a dog, as a 3-point dog, take it now. But now we've settled into this week, and the more I thought about it, it's like, oh, this is a good number. We're getting good value on this Lions team. I would honestly probably take this up to 3 now at this point. Like I probably would still take Detroit at -3 the more I've looked in this game. So yeah, just a tough spot for this Bills team coming off such a brutal game against the Rams, facing, like you just said, a Lions team that's coming off extended rest at home, getting guys back healthy. This should just be a great matchup for them.
Also, the Bills coming off a brutal stretch, right? Playing the
Yeah,
Chiefs, playing the Niners, going across the country, playing the Rams
yeah.
in a crazy game, physical game. Now they got to travel again for the Lions. It's a rough spot for the Bills. So, all right, good. Then I feel better about putting the Lions in at 2.5. You've kind of convinced me. You made me
No,
feel
I've been hitting
confident.
it. Like I've been betting this. But it was just sitting at 2. I was like, I got to keep betting this until it goes up to 2.5. And there's still some 2s out there if you want this number.
You know what? You've supported me the way Tommy John supports me. You are my personal Tommy John. Uh, Tampa Bay +3 at the Chargers. You've talked about it. You've liked it. You loved this one on Tuesday. Second week in a row, you like Tampa. Clearly, you are seeing something. Um, you're right. It's split. I've heard things going both ways.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is mostly a pro play, though. Like, I think the line is at 3 and it's going to go back down to 2.5. What are you seeing that makes you feel so good?
It is. I told you it's split that the guys taking the 3 are professionals, and then I know plenty of professionals taking the 2.5 on the Chargers. So it's
Yeah, yeah,
just
exactly. I think it's
it's a
bouncing back
game
and
that if
forth.
you're like, I don't want to put this in because it's so split, I would totally understand because it's definitely a game I was heavy on Monday and Tuesday on this Tampa team. And I've pulled back as the week has gone along, hearing some other people's opinions and looking at the numbers of like, okay, do I really want to risk a ton of money on Baker on the road in this exact spot? But I just view this Tampa as a more complete team right now and a healthier team playing against a Chargers team that I still think they're overvalued. Like I thought they were overvalued heading into last week. They got away with it, right? They had 2 good drives that had resulted in touchdowns that really that changed that game. Other than outside those 2 touchdowns, they really didn't do much, or Herbert didn't do much in that game. So even, I'm not trying to bash Herbert because obviously he's playing with terrible receivers right now, but he's also been inconsistent this season, which is my knock coming into him this season was like he can have a really good 1 quarter, but then he'll have 3 quarters of just struggling and not doing much. And this Tampa team, they have their running backs. Like they're not missing their top guy like the Chargers are in J.K. Dobbins, and they're not missing their number 1 receiver like the Chargers are with Ladd McConkey. They have Mike Evans back, and you've seen it that they've kind of had Mike Evans break glass in case of emergency. Like they haven't really been forcing him the ball and putting him in these terrible positions to really mess with his lower body because that was injuries coming off of. And looking at this matchup, maybe they put Derwin James on him, but like I don't see anyone on the side of the Chargers that'll be able to take away the Mike Evans factor, that whenever he wants, he'll be able to get there. And, as the season goes along, as great as Joe Alt has been in the offensive line, the Chargers have been, overall, they're not one of the best offensive lines. Like there are ways to attack it, especially in the interior. So it's just about the number for me and loving this Tampa team. Like, unfortunately, I was hoping in our contest we would get 3.5. There's no way, because we already talked about it. Like a lot of books have been moving to 2.5. So once again, it's a game that I love the number. We're not going to get the number I want and play in the contest. So if we don't want to put it in, I'm fine with that. There's other games I like as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one. There were 3 games that were on this 2.5, 3 line: Houston, Miami, Tampa Bay, Chargers, and then this last one, which I'll transition to, which is your Simon Says, Green Bay 2.5 over the Seahawks on the road in Seattle. And this one has been bouncing around too. I think in most places it's now at 3, although it was still at 2.5 at Bet365. I think we'll get 2.5 in the contest. I actually feel pretty good about the Packers at 2.5. I feel better about the Packers at 2.5 as favorites than I think I do about the Bucs at 2.5 as dogs.
Yeah, my only fear with this is I've been hitting this pretty heavy, and like I talked to a couple bookmakers and I was like, "Oh, you're gonna move this up to 3 now?" And they said no. And I was like, "Ah, shit. Maybe I'm stepping into one here." Because usually when I come in, and especially guys who respect me, they will move numbers off my bet. But this one didn't budge. So the books are taking a stand on the Seahawks. I know some professionals like the Seahawks here because they think their defense is still being a little underrated, and that something's not right, Jordan Love. But it's like, I don't know, when I go through all their games and watch them break it down, it's like this is still a team that wants to run the ball in Green Bay. And if they can get any type of run game going, it's going to be over for the Seahawks, because that just builds off. LaFleur just builds off that run game so strong. The play action pass, and we've seen it. Like Jordan Love loves to push the ball downfield off play action pass. Like if he has the check down of 5 to 10 yards and it's an easy 5 to 10 yards, he will take the man that's covered downfield for the 25-yarder if he can. He just loves to push the ball downfield. It's just the way Jordan Love has been this season. And we've seen the Seahawks, as good as their defense has been, there are ways to attack in the ways that I think this Green Bay team can exploit. And on the flip side, it's like, at what point does this Seahawks team become overrated and a little overvalued, right? Like they've had a run here where they've had some really great covers, and shocking, they're 8-5 now. Had their division, and I get where these pros are coming from, but let's just break down, since their bye week, right? They went to the 49ers and they stole one, right? They got dominated that whole game, that Geno turned it on. They won 20-17. Then they played Arizona at home, a team that we've been on fraud watch with Arizona all season. We always talk about, we don't know if Kyler Murray is just inconsistent, if he doesn't really, know how to break down game film, because it seems like the second half of the year, every time in his career, he struggles. So they lose to the Seahawks, right? Next game, they play the Jets, another fluky game that they win, and then they go to Arizona and beat Arizona again. So it's like, I get why the public's coming in on this team after those 4 straight wins. But when you really go through it, it's like, are those that great of wins? I mean, we already talked about those Arizona games. the first one was a little fluky, right? They could have easily gone the other way. Jets game, same thing. So it just feels like it's a nice time for me to sell on the Seahawks team that I know professionals still buying on, and me to buy low on a Green Bay team that I already gave this stat and everyone else is giving it out. Vikings, Green Bay, Detroit, 28-3 playing outside their division this season. Like, that's just not something we can ignore.
Yeah, it's just, are you buying the Packers losing against really good teams or the Seahawks beating teams that aren't as good in fluky ways? They
Yeah.
don't beat the Jets if they don't get that Leonard Williams touchdown return
Yeah,
for
right, right.
right, for an interception, right? So I get it. I'd probably lean Packers -2.5 for the contest versus Bucks +2.5, but we can
I mean,
debate.
it's
I
one of my
think
bigger bets, so it's like I'll probably make us put a Green Bay in just because I'm so heavily invested. It's like make the show be invested in it too.
I don't have any. I've bet them both. I've bet more on the Packers at -2.5 than I bet on the Bucks at +3.
Okay,
Um, so like you, I probably put what 100 grand on the Packers at -2.5, 200 grand. We can
sharp,
talk about
sharp.
it. We can talk about it at the show tonight. Last game quickly I want to talk about because I know we want to get to Evan.
Yeah.
Um, the Bears +7. Uh, like it's just too big of a number. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way the Vikings should be 7-point favorites against the Bears in the division. Like if we didn't have the bias of the Bears and what happened last week, and we didn't have the bias of Sam Darnold lighting it up against the Falcons, and we just saw this number with teams in this division, and we saw the stats for the Bears defense, we would play the Bears. We just would. I'm not saying like we have to. I'm actually glad that I didn't hear from sharp calls that wise guys were coming in on the Bears at an excessive rate, but I'm just saying we would play the Bears.
No, and every wise guy I talked to does like that side. Like, this pro last night was saying his biggest bet of the night was Bears at 7. But he said, yeah, he says he loves it at 7, but it's your exact viewpoint of like, this is way too big for a divisional matchup. But I pushed back on him. I said, I can't trust Caleb's splits on the road and home away. He's just been a totally different quarterback on the road than versus at home. And yeah, I'm happy we're avoiding a check because honestly, I can't do another week with this Bears team. They've been good to us this season, so I don't want to knock them too hard. Obviously, we just caught a bad one last week, but I told you my hesitation is I could easily see Kevin O'Connell never calling off the dogs here just because they blew a 14-point lead to this team 2-3 weeks ago, this Bears team. So
yeah,
that's my hesitation here is that if they want to, because they are the better team, the Vikings really could open up and punish this team. But you're right. Normally, divisional games 7 + 7. This is way too many points for this Bears team. So it's a tough one that we have to pass on, Chad. But it's like, don't make me bet this Bears team once again.
No, look, I think we have 5 games that we like even better. And preliminarily, I just want to be clear, you and I, because like we miscommunicated last week with the Panthers. Right now, Cleveland 4.5, Jags 3.5, Pittsburgh 5.5, Colts 4.5, Detroit 2.5, Green Bay 2.5. Like of those 6, who is your first one out? It
I
feels like it
can't.
comes down to the Jags, right?
Yeah, I get your hesitation with the Jags. That one I really do just love the number. It could be. I told you I'm having a tough time chat with this Pittsburgh number. I'm not gonna lie. I'm having a real tough time with Pittsburgh. So I will let you take the Jags out if you want to dig your heels on Pittsburgh. I'm happy with that.
Well, let's talk. We can dig. Like it just feels like
We'll talk then after a couple of drinks. We'll figure this out with the fans.
Yeah, I feel like with the Steelers, we're making the same. We'll ask the group what should be the last one in. But I do feel like we're making the same mistake we always make with the Steelers is trying to find a reason not to play Tomlin as a big road dog in a game that we think is going to be low scoring, and they'll play conservative against an offense that likes to run the ball in the Eagles. So
I mean, you can't lie though. Your spidey senses have to be going off and being like, "What the fuck is this number?"
they go off every single week with the Steelers now. It's like it doesn't because none of it makes any sense.
Yeah.
It goes off every week with the Steelers and the Chiefs. It just does. Like the ways in which they are covering or not covering based on the trends, the Chiefs as a favorite of 3 and the Steelers as an underdog, we say it happened 6 out of 10 times, but now it's happening 10 out of 10 times.
Right.
So it has to regress. I think that's what we're saying, and that's what we're nervous about. Simon, can you name the best ticketing app in the United States?
Game time.
That's right. It's our beloved sponsor, Game Time. As Simon and all of our listeners know, I love going to live games, NFL, NBA, college football, college basketball. In fact, when I did my 3-game, 3-night sportacular with my son last month, I used Game Time to buy tickets for all 3 games. Game Time is my favorite way to buy tickets. They've got amazing last-minute deals on games and concerts. And their new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Speaking of which, I'm opening the Game Time app right now from my hotel here in Philadelphia. And guess what? I can get into the Philadelphia 76ers game. These are professional basketball players with potential Rookie of the Year, Jared McCain. I can get in for $6. Real NBA basketball this week in Philadelphia. My favorite part about Game Time, their all-in pricing shows me the total cost up front, no surprises, no matter where you live. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code FAVORITES for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem your code FAVORITES, FAVORITES for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, time for our boosted underdog money line parlay with our friends at Bet365. They're going to boost the odds. They're going to highlight this 2-team money line underdog parlay on their site all weekend. It's going to be under both game pages for the teams that we are highlighting. Remember, both games are eligible for Bet365's early payout promo. Your money line pick gets marked as a win if either team takes a 17-point lead, even if they lose. If you want to bet this, bet it at Bet365. The boosted parlay this week shouldn't be a surprise. Colts and Bucks. Find the boosts under the Colts or Bucks game pages on Bet365. Before we move on to our round robin, quick note just for the live show viewers. We asked Bet365 for a special boosted parlay for tonight's Thursday night game. It just went live this second. It's the first boost listed on the Bet365 homepage. Deebo Samuel, 50+ receiving yards. Brock Purdy, 2+ touchdown passes. San Francisco on the money line. It's boosted from +280 to +350. If you're watching and you have Bet365, bet that with us right now. I'm going to go in the app as soon as we're off the air. I'm going to bet it this second. I'm ready to go with Bet365. Listen, Deebo's pissed. Brock Purdy knows it. They're going to get him the ball. He could cover this 50+ in the first quarter. So let's get after it, folks. Simon and I have a moneyline underdog round robin. Cleveland Browns. Indianapolis Colts. Simon, correct me if I'm wrong in any of these. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pittsburgh Steelers. Miami Dolphins. Is there anybody I'm missing? Do you feel strongly about putting someone else in?
As an Eagles fan, I have a strong opinion, but no, as a bettor, no, I'll let it roll.
All right. What's your biggest bet?
Colts definitely been hammering that, but again, it's if you can find the 4.5, 4, that's really the key for that bet for me. Green Bay, I just can't stop betting at -2.5, and I know it's. Usually, I don't want to take this large position on a favorite, but I can't help it. It just feels like it's such a good number right now. And last one is just Detroit at 2. If you can get the 2, to me that's a big deal right now. This Lions game, me and Chad have just seen so many games land on 2 that I don't want to get 2.5. I want to get the 2. So right now, yeah, my 2 biggest bets are 2 favorites: Green Bay and Detroit.
Wow.
I know.
Who says we can't adjust?
Over
We're just betting numbers, guys. That's all we're doing. Scooch Roulette, you won last week. I lost. So
Damn,
give
who'd
me
you
your
lose
pick.
on? Oh, you had Cleveland.
I had
Fuck.
Cleveland. You had Minnesota.
Yeah,
Remember,
Minnesota.
I got to choose first. I chose Cleveland, and you were mad at me. And it turns out
No, that was just mind games. That was all
I
mind
did you a
games.
favor.
Um, sheesh. I guess I will dig in and just say I just love Green Bay. I'll take Green Bay 2.5.
All right. I'm gonna take Indy. I was gonna go with Indy or Pittsburgh, but I'll take Indy. Um, Before we get out of here, let's bring in Director of Research, Evan Abrams. Final word. Talk to us, Evan.
What's going on, fellas? So let's start with the bye week. Obviously, bye is behind us, but that means this is going to be the last week where teams are coming off of a bye. Interesting enough, teams who are coming off a bye facing a team who isn't. Just 9-13 straight up this season. $100 better, down $713 on the money line in this spot. Be the second worst season for teams off a bye over the last decade. Now, this week, that's New England, Houston, Baltimore, and Washington. Obviously, a few pretty big favorites in there. So we will see if anyone crashes and burns. Let's go to this Philly and Pittsburgh game. Now, Simon was mentioning the George Pickens information in terms of him being out this week. In my article, I wrote on Action Network, which I write every week. I talked about his impact on the game. So everyone should go check that out. But I want to talk about a stat with the game and then something off of it. So the Eagles obviously have the best rush attack in the NFL. They're averaging 190.6 yards per game on the ground, best mark in the league. Now, it's interesting enough, and I looked this up because I was curious. Tomlin has done a really good job against rush offenses. 150 plus average, he's 23-16 against the number. 170 plus, he's 9-4. 180 plus, he's 6-3. And the other interesting point. So Steelers, great record, 76% win percentage entering this game. This is the most points he has gotten with his starting quarterback with that good of a record since 2008 with Big Ben. So obviously that Pickens news is massive, but it's interesting the number is that high. So I understand you guys are kind of waffling there. All right, I got two more quick ones here. So not too many further trips in the NFL than Tampa to LA. But in the past, we've talked about travel as a negative thing, which it is in certain spots, but this is just for what it's worth. Since 2016, teams going EST to a road game in PST, 84-60 against the spread, 58%,
Wow.
including 21-14 against the number the last two seasons. This week, Green Bay and Tampa Bay. So both teams you guys like, so it fit well. And then I got one more for you. Now, everyone's going to keep going against Kansas City. They're going to keep winning, and they're going to keep not covering. But this is just an interesting piece of information going into this matchup against Cleveland. So if you like the Browns, here's some facts that'll probably help. Cleveland's defense has the second highest pressure percentage in the NFL. Mahomes has taken 35 sacks this season, 11 more than any other year of his career between weeks 1 and 14. He's been sacked 23 times in his last 6 games. His career high for a season before this year was just 28 in an entire year. And we talk about the Jameis part of this, but the Chiefs only have 10 takeaways as a defense this year. That is 4 fewer than any team who has ever started 11-2. So Jameis might give them an easy one, but it's not like they've been taking it away from their opponents. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Evan, great stuff. You've confirmed our biases, which is all I can ask. And don't worry, the Chiefs have Steven Nelson to the rescue. So their turnovers are just about to skyrocket. Their takeaways are going to go nuts. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365, and now new Bet365 customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code Favorites, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Simon and I will return with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, to recap NFL Week 15. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Till next time, love you.